Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you, and thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Knob Creek 18-year-old and comparing it to one of my favorite super premium beams that came out last year, the Hardin's Creek Jacobs Well Bourbon. Now the Hardin's Creek Jacobs Well, I did name my bourbon of the year. It's a combination of two Jim Beam mash bills, traditional beam, 16 years old in this one, and that's going to be the 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% barley. But then they also added in a 15-year-old granddad component here, and that's going to be that 63% corn, 27% rye, and 10% barley mash bill. Those two combined, bottled at 108 proof, comes in this nice little tin. MSRP on it was about $150, but I typically see them at about $200 or so. Some on shelves, mostly I do see them online as well. All right, Knob Creek 18 just basically came out back end of 2022. Again, still see these everywhere, and so I kind of wanted to just do them head to head, and we'll just see what's going to happen, right? 100 proof, 108 proof, both contain traditional beam. This one just has a little old granddad component blended in as well. Okay, Knob Creek 18-year-old on the nose. It's very, very sweet. Wow, like really sweet. Caramel, maybe just a little bit of brown sugar. Big cinnamon, big bright cherry tone to it. A little bit of like a peanut. Yeah, maybe like a peanut shell or something going on. Pretty good amount of oat. The cinnamon is dominant on the spice component. Maybe a little cocoa, a little cola on the nose as well. Maybe a little bit of, there's a hint of like a baked raspberry in there. All right, but let's go ahead and taste it. 100 proof, Knob Creek 18. Medium viscosity. It's a little, it's not super viscous. Pretty big flavors. They kind of rush up. Here, okay, let's see if I can break this down. Caramel, just a touch of brown sugar. That peanut shell, peanuts, it's almost like peanut skins. Rushes in with it. Bright maraschino cherry. Big baking spices. Almost like a spiced oak, because that oak rushes in almost immediately with that kind of that peanut shell thing. Big oak in there as well. You get the spicing, the baking spices kind of providing a swell on the mid palate. Almost makes it feel like it drinks hotter than 100. I would say this one drinks like 103, 105. And then on the back end, it starts layering on a little cocoa, some leather, big heavy oak, just starts rolling. You can still chew on a little bit of the cherries from up front. There is a little bit of that baked raspberry in there, but the cherry is big and dominant. The oak luckily still feels fairly sweet because it starts out really, really sweet. Little touch of citrus orange oil in there as well. That leather on the back end, as soon as it hits that spice component on the mid palate, gets a touch dry. And then, but it's not overly dry. It's just a touch dry. Overall, it's really nice. It's well-made bourbon. And at $170 to $200, I think you could do a lot worse. So it's actually pretty good. I think personally, if you like the younger bourbon profile where it's like big caramel, banana split type bourbon, the 12-year-old was fantastic. Very inexpensive relative to this. The 15-year-old, if you want more oak, the 15-year-old hit that. As a matter of fact, this doesn't have very much more oak than the 15. It just has a brighter cherry profile, and it's a touch sweeter than the 15. But big leather, a little bit of that old bourbon character on that back end where it's a little dusty, a little bookish. Very, very nice. Just a subtle, subtle hint of maybe even a little tobacco in there. All right. Hardin's Creek Jacobs Well, 108 proof. Woo. All right, here we go. On the nose, oh goodness, oh, this one's brown sugar and molasses here on the nose. Not very much on the caramel. This one goes into like brandied cherries, plums. There's that orange oil. There's big clove, a little bit of cinnamon, but mostly clove in this one. Leather, cocoa. Not nearly as nutty as I was getting on the Knob Creek 18. All right, let's taste it. Wow, definitely has that big, huge brown sugar, big molasses depth. The fruit component here is definitely more on the darker spectrum. So we're on that brandy cherries, those almost like plums, and sometimes they would kind of marinate plums in Armagnac, and it almost has that characteristic to it. It's almost got dates to it. Good medium, a little bit above medium viscosity. As you hit that mid palate, that's where you get that big clove orange oil thing happening, big leather, old leather component dropping in, cocoa powder dusting on top, big rich oak running underneath. But the oak doesn't like jump out at you. You've got all this other things happening. Big, nice finish. There is a little tobacco on this one as well. This one just lacks a little bit of that peanut shell type, peanut skin essence that this one had. So I guess if you like more of that nutty style and brighter cherry in your bourbon, but you need that oak, you know, that mature bourbon character, this is a fantastic bourbon. If you're looking for more of that old bourbon style, almost like I like to think of it like when you're watching an old movie and you see them go to that decanter of bourbon and they're like pouring it out. This is pretty much what that bourbon was tasting like back then. So if you're looking for that type of profile, then the Hardin Creek Jacob's Well is going to be the way to go. But to me, I think Jim Beam's coming a long way. I know, you know, for a long time they were kind of just standing around in the background while Buffalo Trace was doing their, you know, BTAC, and Heaven Hill had been doing their Parker's Heritage Collection, and finally it seems like, okay, they're getting on their horse and they're taking off now. So this is fantastic, and they're doing really well made products. So that's a good thing. You know, are they going to be able to keep it up? I hope so. I know we just found out Hardin Heaven Hill is coming out for their new Heritage Collection, which again, they dropped a 17-year-old to 27-year last year, and now they're about to do a 20-year-old corn whiskey. It's probably going to be amazing. You know, they've got some good competition there. So if they can continue something like this and keep this going, they are going to really start making a name for themselves once again. Because if we're looking at the history of Beam, you know, you have to go back to 1999 when they first introduced the very first hyper ultra premium bourbon. You know, back then the Distiller's Masterpiece 18 that was finished in cognac was, you know, again, $250 I think retail. Had never been done before. People were looking at $50 bourbons and going, why am I going to pay $250? So they sat on shelves forever, but they are fantastic bourbons. If you ever get the chance to taste those, I think 2 years later in 01, they came out with the 20-year Portwood port finish bourbon. And again, that was excellent. But ever since then, it seemed like they didn't want to go back to doing really old product. And I could see it because back then we weren't ready for it, but now we definitely are. So these are welcome additions to that profile portfolio, and I hope they keep it up. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, join me over at patreon.com/LiquorHound to get all these videos 2 weeks early and ad-free. You're going to help keep this channel alive because that's how I'm able to continue purchasing bottles like this to review. But thank you as always for being here, and regardless of which platform you're watching, I hope everyone has a great day, and cheers.